Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to start off with Journey Into Nyx, which is the last part of the original Theros block, and we're going to start looking at Mortals of Myth, which is a white-green deck. So let's take a look at the deck list. We've got 19 creatures, 8 instants, 6 enchantments, 1 artifact, and 26 lands. We've got a mana curve off to the side there. Let's start looking at the deck. So it is green-white heroic again, so very similar, honestly, to Anthusa's army from the first Theros set. So we've seen a lot of these cards already, honestly, and the new ones introduced in Journey Into Nyx aren't really doing too much that's like new or interesting. So there's not really a lot to say about it. So the foil face rare is Dawnbringer Charioteers. So 2 and 2 white for a 2/4 with flying and lifelink, which is okay. That's what Seraph of the Dawn stats, and Seraph of the Dawn is, you know, really solid common back in Avacyn Restored. And has heroic. When you cast a spell that targets it, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, you know, this deck is basically these heroic creatures and a bunch of buff spells that target them and give them counters. That's basically it. So I mean, like, this is fine. It just feels. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a bad card. You know, it's not, because, you know, it's got flying, it's got lifelink, it's got ways of increasing its power toughness. It just feels a little bland, honestly, if I'm honest. A single Crone Skyguard, we've seen these load, so just 1 white for 1/1 with flying and heroic, gets a +1/+1 counter. A single Phalanx Leader, so double white for a 1/1, whenever you target it, you get a +1/+1 counter on every creature you control, so this I feel is one of the best white heroic cards. If you bought Anthusa's army and the white-red heroic deck and this one, like, you've nearly got a full playset of Phalanx Leader, because they're very stingy and only put one of them in each of those decks, which is a shame, because I do think it is, like I said, like one of the better white heroic cards. A single Elite Skirmisher, 2 and a white for a 3/1. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you can tap target creature. Sure, I'm not actually wild on this ability. Like, I would rather it just have a tap down ability, because, I mean, I suppose, like, you're getting the buff spell and you're doing something else, I suppose, but I don't know. It's alright. At least it's doing something other than just doing +1/+1 counters. 2 Laguna Band Trailblazer, 1 white mana for a 0/4. Yep, gets +1/+1 counters when you target it. So basically better than Yoked Ox, which has been in the block, because that's one white mana for just a 0/4 vanilla. So right here we have something that immediately invalidates it. Not sure why you'd be using Yoked Ox in the first place, but, you know, here we go. A single Vanguard of Brimaz, double white for a 2/2 with Vigilance, which is, you know, pretty okay. And whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you create a Cat Soldier creature token that has Vigilance. So this is really good, actually. I do like when the heroic triggers are something other than just getting +1/+1 counters. I mean, getting +1/+1 counters is still good, but, you know, there's nice design space. You can do something else with it, and this is okay because it adds to your board. So if you do this with the Phalanx Leader, then, yeah, then you're going to be getting quite a lot of value, I think. And then a single Wingsteed Rider, just 1 and 2 white for a 2/2 flying. Heroic gets a +1/+1 counter. Yep, very boring, very straightforward. And 2 Fury's Band Thunderhoof, 4 and a green for a 3/4. Heroic, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Again, very boring, very straightforward, very functional. Fine. It's basically fine. And then we've got 2 Supply Line Cranes, so 3 and double white for a 2/4 flyer. When it ends the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, so, you know, more ways of getting +1/+1 counters on your stuff, and, you know, making things stronger. Yeah, this can come in as a 3/5 flyer, which is, you know, not terrible for 5 mana, I suppose, but obviously it's much better just to put a +1/+1 counter on your thing. Oh, if this had flash, actually, it'd be really good, I think. But as is, I think it's just maybe a little maybe too expensive for what it does. It's okay. It's still a fairly decently sized flyer. 2 Acroan Mastiff. Oh, I was just complaining about not having a tap down ability. 3 and a white for a 2/2, 1 white and tap target creature. Yep. Not much to say about it. I really like that it is just, there's no conditions to it, because we're sort of edging in now into the point in the game where this kind of tap down effect, like the Master Decoy ability, is starting to have conditions, and I think that's mostly to kind of stop the board state stalling out and getting stagnant. Like, it's usually either tied to an attack trigger or only being able to do you know, creatures of a certain power or something, or a certain toughness. So this is just a, you know, straightforward unconditional. So this is okay, actually. This is actually a rarity going forward. A single Sky Spear Cavalry, 3 and double white for a 2/2 flying and double strike. So this is something really, really nice to put +1/+1 counters on, or some of the other buff spells. Yeah, this is pretty good. Maybe I'm being greedy. I would like it. I would have liked it maybe if it had got double strike as a heroic trigger. Maybe that's being greedy, but at least it has double strike. It's always useful, I suppose. Yeah, that's right. 2 golden hind, just 1 and a green for a 2/1. Taps to give you green. Yep, just nice little kind of mana dork. It's okay. A single Quarry Colossus, 5 and double white for a 5/6. When it enters the battlefield, put target creature into its owner's library just beneath the top X cards of that library, where X is the number of planes you control. So this is like a really interesting removal effect. Don't usually see this often in white, and I do think it could be used more often. This kind of like, because you're not killing something, you're just kind of locking it away for a certain number of turns, which I think is like it's a really interesting twist on a removal effect, honestly. So I would like to actually see this show up more in the future. I think it may actually, I say that it probably shows up maybe once every couple of sets, maybe, I don't know off the top of my head, but I do think it's an interesting effect. It's just, it's stapled onto a pretty expensive body here, but hopefully you'd be able to, by the time you're able to cast this, you've got a set, let's say 4 planes out. So being able to bury something 4 cards below is pretty good, I think. It's okay, but then it comes in there. It's just a big 5/6 chunky lad, which is, I mean, it's okay. It's okay. And then a single Oresca Swiftclaw, 1 and white just for a 3/1. Yep. So the other rare of the deck is Spear of Heliod. So 1 and double white for a legendary enchantment artifact. Gives all your creatures +1/+1, which is just a fine anthem effect. And you can spend 1 double white and tap it, destroy a creature that dealt damage to you this turn. So yep, like all the kind of god artifacts, I think this is pretty solid. Yeah, just gives a nice useful passive ability like they all do, I think, and then has a pretty useful activated abilities. Yeah, pretty good. Right, so then we move on to the non-creature spells, and this is really the deck that's showing off one of the new mechanics of Journey Into Nyx, which is Strive, which is kind of a bit like Multi-Kicker's weird sibling, is the best way to think about it, or like Replicate, all the way back from original Ravnica, is it? So let's look at Ajani's Presence. So Ajani's Presence is 1 white mana, and it has Strive, so it costs 2 white, to more to cast for every target beyond the first. And any number of target creatures each get +1/+1 and gain indestructible in 10/10. So for 1 white mana, you can affect 1 creature. For 2 colours and 2 white, you can affect 2 creatures. For 4 colours and 3 white, you can do 3 creatures, and so on and so on. So it's a nice way that, like, as the game goes on, as your mana goes up, you can get multiple heroic triggers with just a single card, which is, I think, pretty good. But these Strive costs are usually like pretty expensive, I think. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It just feels weird that it's just a mechanic that's like tacked onto the third set of the block. But having said that, there's actually quite a few cards that use Strive. I'd say a fair number of a good ratio of the cards in the set had this mechanic. And it fits in this deck, I say, where you want to target your own creatures. And even if you pay it for just, if you don't Strive it, it's still a pretty good trick, like +1/+1 and indestructible instant speed is obviously pretty good. We've got a single Phalanx formation, 2 and a white with Strive. Strive for 1 and a white. Any number of target creatures each get double strike 10 turns. So this is pretty expensive if you just do it on its own, like 2 and a white, just to give 1 creature double strike 10 turn. Double strike at instant speed is still like a really strong combat trick. But I feel like 2 and a whites are like a little bit, is maybe 1 too expensive. Striving it, so you'd be 5 mana to give it to 2 creatures. I'm not saying giving double strike is bad. It's not, because it can potentially just kind of win a game out of nowhere. And if you're getting all your heroic triggers out of it and stuff. But I don't know, I feel like it has maybe too high of an initial cost. But the Strive cost is at least benefits by being a little bit lower. So yeah, it's okay. And then 2 Colossal Heroics, 2 in a green, Strive for 1 in a green. Any number of target creatures each get +2/+2 10 and untap those creatures. So this is quite nice. Kind of like the Phalanx formation. I think kind of maybe a little too expensive, the initial casting, and then the Strive cost being cheaper. I think is actually probably, thinking about it, it's actually probably a more balanced way of doing it, because otherwise it would be kind of like strictly better than say like Savage Surge or something. So this is okay, and it's also a good way to use. I say you got the Golden Hind in there, which gives you a bit of extra mana. I think you've got some other land ramp in here. I think maybe. A single Nature's Panoply, so 1 green mana, Strive for 2 and a green, choose any number of type creatures, put a +1/+1 count on each of them. This is where I think the Strive cost is actually a little bit too expensive. Like, it's not worth paying 2 and 2 green just to distribute 2 +1/+1 counters. Yeah, it's not. I don't think that's too great. But just for 1 green, instant speed, this is like an okay buff. It's basically the most simplest combat trick, just a +1/+1 counter. It's all right. Solidarity of Heroes, though, this is where the real money is. So 1 and a green, Strive for 1 and a green, choose any number of type creatures, double the number of +1/+1 counters on them. So this is really, actually, I think, quite good, because I'm probably going to make an ass of myself because I'm going to get the rules wrong here, but you target a creature, the heroic ability triggers, it gets the +1/+1 counter, and then Solidarity resolves, and then you get the extra counter on them then. So in a deck where you've got so many things that care about +1/+1 counters, this is like a really solid card. It's a real shame I think there's only 1 of them in here. It's fairly cheap as well to cast and fairly cheap to Strive. So yeah, this is okay. I think it's a pretty solid inclusion. Would have been nice to have maybe an extra 1 in here though. A single Consign to Dust, 2 and a green with Strive for another 2 and a green, destroying number of target artifacts or enchantments. Again, like paying potentially 6 mana just to destroy 2 artifacts or enchantments is a little bit expensive, I think. But it's fine, I suppose. It's okay. It's extra utility, I suppose. And enchantment destruction really matters in Theros block anyway. A single Raised by Wolves, 3 and a green. Aura goes on a creature. When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 wolf tokens, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for every wolf you control. These are the wolves in the deck, so it's only going to be getting at most +2/+2. But it's okay. It's adding, potentially it's adding 6 power onto the board, like with 1 casting, I suppose. And you got the wolves who can get +1/+1 counters and benefit from your board-wide buffs. So yeah, this is okay as an aura, I think. 2 Banishing Light, so this is when Banishing Light gets introduced into the game, ending the reign of Oblivion Ring, I suppose. So it's fixed Oblivion Ring. I've sort of talked about it before, but I do think this is how Oblivion Ring should have always worked, just to prevent kind of weird rules, loopholes, and shenanigans. So 2 and a white. When it comes into its enchantment, when it enters the battlefield, you exile a non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. The difference here that it is all 1 sentence, whereas on Oblivion Ring, it was, it comes in and you exile something, and then it was a separate sentence. When it leaves, you return the exiled thing, and if you stacked the triggers the right way, you could permanently exile something, which felt like quite exploitative. And if you did it against sort of, someone who wasn't familiar with the rules, it feels a bit like cheating. So this, I think, is a lot cleaner and a lot more kind of true to what the original purpose of it was. And then 2 Oppressive Rays, 1 white mana, goes on a creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block unless its controller pays 3, and activates the abilities of the enchanted creature costs 3 more to activate. So it's kind of like budget pacifism. There's I kind of reconsidered these effects because way back in Saviors of Kamigawa, there's a card very sort of similar to this, Cowed by Wisdom, which is like, the creature can't attack or block unless they pay a certain cost or whatever. And I thought, this is worse than pacifism, because pacifism, you don't give them that option. They just can't attack or block. And this, I think, actually does an interesting little head game in that an opponent might want to leave that 3 mana open to do the attack or block, and that might then prevent them from maybe casting other spells, activating other abilities. Whereas if it's just straight up passive, and they're like, right, well, you don't have to worry about that. Whereas this, at least, is always kind of maybe a little bit of decision they've got to consider. So potential use there for the mind games, the extra kind of mental tax on the opponent, maybe. And then a single Font of Vigor. So these are cycle of these, 1 in each color. They are basically just enchantments that you just sacrifice for kind of minor effects, I suppose. So 1 in a white. You pay 2 in a white, sacrifice it, and then you gain 7 life. It's just so bland. It's so straightforward and bland. And then 11 forests and 15 plains. So what could have been? It's green white heroic, isn't it? It's all right. it's very straightforward. The one card they think is absolutely missing, and I can confirm from experience, is absolutely bonkers in like a heroic deck. or a deck with a bunch of heroic creatures. Heroic deck is not a, an archetype as such. Reap What Is Sown. This is an amazingly good card. So 1, a green and a white. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 3 target creatures. So you got 3 heroic creatures out. You're getting 3 heroic triggers, and they're getting the counters. And yeah, it's just a super good card to have if you're doing green white heroic creatures. So yeah, definitely should have had at least one of these. I think it's a real shame that was left out. And then the other 2 cards, really, I don't know, like Launch the Fleet maybe as an alternate rare. You got the Dawnbringer Charioteers, who are like the foil face rare. This maybe instead of Spear of Heliod we could have had this, but I think the Spear is still a better card. Launch the Fleet is just it's a super cheap Strive card actually, so it helps trigger heroic stuff. But it's 1 white. Strive it for 1 generic. Until end turn, a number of target creatures each game. Whenever this creature attacks, you make a 1/1 soldier creature token that's also tapped and attacking. So it just kind of doubles your attackers really. It's okay. And then just the other heroic creature that was kind of left off, Tethmos High Priest, 2 and a white for a 2/3. Whenever you target it and get the heroic trigger, you return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it like reanimates just small creatures, which is okay. You got like a few small creatures in the deck, which is fine, I suppose. I say it's like better than nothing, I think. But yeah, definitely Reap What Is Sown. Like the other 2 cards, I'm kind of like whatever about. But yeah, definitely should have had Reap What Is Sown, because that is a super good card in this kind of deck. In summary, we've sort of seen it before though, isn't it? It's just green white heroic. It's not doing too much new or interesting. You got the Strive cards, which are okay, but they're just kind of like slightly more fiddly buff spells, honestly. It's okay. It's not setting the world on fire. It just seems very solid, and very, very by the books. Not too exciting, but yeah, basically okay. I think it play okay out of the box. But what are your thoughts on the deck? After seeing, if you have any thoughts or comments or opinions about the deck or any of the cards in it, stick a comment below. Always like reading those. But I'll be back next time. Go look at another Journey Into Nyx intro pack. So until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.